This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Delighted to be joined by all the way in Bahrain, Mr. Mohammed Shahid. How are you, Shahid?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's quite late where you are at the moment. So are you a night person? You're always up at night?
No. See, I'll tell you one thing. One of the things I've learned for being a part of the global organization is that you cannot look at time because while it's night here, it's morning somewhere else. So you got to work 24/7. So I live on the global time, which is something different, you know.
That's a good way of looking at it, because if you're talking to people obviously from different parts of the world, then you have to be kind of available 24/7.
100%.
I appreciate your time. So you've been involved in combat sports for a very long time, Shahid. Tell me about your journey in that.
KUGAN, one of the things I've always tell people is that my journey has been a fighter, a gym owner, a manager, trained athletes. So when I was really young, my goal was to get into the military and utilize my physical fitness some way or the other, what's best for me. But the moment I saw mixed martial art and boxing, which was my love, I decided to go into combat sports. But one thing I realized is where I'm coming from, we didn't have mixed martial art or combat sports as a way of living. It was not something that you could make a living out of. But at the same time, there was nothing that could support you with combat sports. So what I decided was that somebody has to take that responsibility to be the first one, and that goes with everything else. So in Bahrain, we didn't have anything to do with mixed martial art. There was no fighters. There was no promotion in the Middle East. So I decided to learn so much through YouTube, through websites and Google. Thanks to internet, that I've spent most of my time trying to find as much information as I can, and it helped me a lot in my career in the future as well. So training myself was one of the toughest things that I've did, but to go and compete in martial arts, and I did that. But at the same time, I realized that one of the most important thing to develop the sport was to create fighters and to have athletes that can represent their nation. And that was the most important thing. So although I competed, I came in Bahrain, I opened my own gym called Bahrain Mma. That was the first ever thing that existed for mixed martial art. And I started asking every single fighter who was from the nationality of Bahrain. You know, I was trying to pitch them like it was a sales pitch, telling them that being a fighter is a great thing. But in our region, we don't have that kind of people who are, you know, like they don't have a way of living. They're all well off. Almost all of them are well off. So it's so hard to convince them to get into fighting and make that a part of your living. So it was not so easy compared to the rest of the world. But I was able to get this kid called Hamza Kohiji, and I told him that, well, I'm gonna help you lose weight, and if I make you lose weight in 6 months, you're gonna believe me and you're gonna trust me, and I'm gonna make you a professional fighter. And he did that. He did everything that I asked for, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. of training. And that kid today is the biggest star of Middle East. He's a pride of Bahrain called Hamza Kohiji, and that's something that I'm really proud of. So my journey has been all about learning. That's been the key part of my journey. But at the same time, I've been a part of developing MMA. But one of the things that changed our course of mixed martial in the region is His Highness Sheikh Khalid. The moment he saw us, and he called me up and he said, I couldn't believe that we had fighters or MMA fighters in Bahrain. And I was like, yes, we do. And not a lot of them, but we do have some of them. And he asked me, why are MMA fighters getting paid so less? And I said, I have no idea. That's an answer I cannot that's a question I cannot answer right now. But then he said that let's build something, not for money, not for anything else, but let's build an infrastructure that's going to change the course of MMA fights in Bahrain. And in time, that turned into changing the lives of combat sports and MMA athletes around the world. And that's the beginning of my journey. That's the beginning of KHK. That's the beginning of Brave. So everything started from that point. But me, myself, I've gone through being a fighter myself, destroyed my body, trying to learn every way trying to see what's the best way of training, because we didn't have that kind of infrastructure in the beginning of my career. But today we have the greatest infrastructure in the world. So it's been tough, but today I'm glad that I can be a part of developing a lot of athletes around the world.
So talk to me a little bit about KHK Sports. You briefly mentioned there and how it actually came about.
So in the beginning, it was all MMA, KUGAN. We thought of the beginning was one question: what's in the business of MMA? Why are athletes in mixed martial art or combat sports as a whole not similar to football, cricket, tennis, or any of the other sports, NBA, NFL? What's the difference? The difference is that mixed martial art or combat sports is an event business. It's not a sports business, and I keep saying that it's not a sports business. It's an event business. And what's the difference between the sports business and the event business? The event business is trying to sell an event. Whether I have the best combat sports star or if I have Shakira in my event, it doesn't make a difference. It's about how many people are going to come and buy tickets, how many sponsors are going to come, and how many TV distributors are going to be wanting my content. It's about the event. But sports is different. Sports business is different. Sports business is an infrastructure and a system that can create athletes regardless of their race, country, religion, or marketability. And that's the most important thing, marketability. You can be the best in the world, even if you don't speak English, even if you are not a trash talking guy. But that's missing in combat sports. So when we started KHK, we decided to make 3 tiers of athletes. Let's talk about, so His Highness took, the first tier of athletes are the guys who are at the top of the food chain. So we had Khabib Nurmagomedov, we had Frankie Edgar, some of the top guys in mixed martial art. We brought them together, and then we had the second tier, which are guys who are in professional mixed martial art, but not at the highest level. So we had Alex Soto, uh, we had Eldar Eldaro, we had Hamza Kohiji, few of the guys. And the third tier was guys who are amateur and wanted to turn professional. And the last and fourth tier was the amateur athletes. So we decided to give them the infrastructure, the support, everything that a Real Madrid, Manchester United athletes would get as a football player. Let's see what would that turn into. 2 years in time, we had Khabib becoming the greatest athlete in the world, Frankie Edgar getting double title shot after that. The second tier of athletes was what was impressive, because Eldar became a champion in Brave, Hamza Kohiji became the star of Bahrain. But the most interesting, KUGAN, was the lower level guys, which was the guys who turned professional from amateur, who did their debut, like Jose Shorty Torres, who instantly, because of his infrastructure and surrounding that he had, the media support, uh, the training camp support, he was instantly got into Titan FC, which is considered as second biggest third biggest promotion in USA, and became the two-weight division champion in Titan FC. France Malombo became the contender and title shot fighter in Brave Combat Federation. James Gallagher became a superstar in Bellator MMA. And the amateur level, today, KUGAN, you can just research on Google, and Bahrain is the #1 MMA national team in the whole world. Pound for pound, junior #1 is KHK MMA. Pound for pound, senior #1 is Bahrain. Pound for pound #2, senior level is Bahrain. So this is a result. How can from the top level, if you take the top level, you'll be like, of course, you got the best fighters. Come on, Shahid, you got the best fighters. But when I take all the 4 tiers, and we had success in all the 4 tiers, there's a difference. So then His Highness spoke to me and he's like, why are we doing this for 20 fighters? What about the rest of the 20,000 fighters around the world? Who's going to look after them? And I didn't have an answer. I was like, I don't know. And he was like, why don't we create a new structure for mixed martial art and combat sports that's going to change the whole world? We are involved in F1. Bahrain is involved in F1. We're the first ones to bring F1 to the GCC. We are the first ones to bring and change triathlon of Ironman by bringing the biggest Ironman event to Bahrain and own Triple Crown, which is the biggest event of Ironman. We are the first team in the whole of Gulf to compete in Tour de France, which is Bahrain Merida, our team. So why don't you use that infrastructure into combat sports? Combine them. We have the result. Why don't we do that? And once we did that, we decided to make Brave Combat Federation, and KHK Sports became a bigger picture. It was not a management company. It was nothing. It was just a program that was going to change combat sports in the world. And then we entered into mixed martial art before boxing, because boxing is a 100-year-old sport. It's not one day's time you can change it. But mixed martial art is much more younger. So let's catch the younger one first. So we got the younger one first, which was mixed martial art. And today, Brave Combat Federation became the fastest growing MMA promotion in the world. Brave Combat Federation has traveled around the world more than MotoGP. We do in 1 year 12 events in 12 different countries and 5 different continents. No other MMA promotion is able to do that. This is to realize that mixed martial art is a global promotion, and let's give it the respect and globalize it. So nobody has been able to globalize mixed martial art as us. But today, we have decided to take that step for what we have done in the past 3 years into boxing. And I know a lot of people will be like, you really think you can adapt that to boxing? But I promise you, KUGAN, we're going to make that happen. If we have the right team and the right people, we're going to make that happen. And that's what we're doing today.
It sounds like KHK Sports has unbelievable ambitions and also a lot of international aspirations as well to kind of take over globally. Is that fair to say?
100%. It is not about money. We are not in the business of trying to make money, KUGAN. We are in the business of trying to change and create a new system that tomorrow, my son, your son, if they're willing to be a combat sports athlete, they don't have to think about trying to be good at English or trying to be a trash talker or trying to be good looking or trying to be impressing people. All they have to do is trying to be a good fighter. And the day we can have a system that's going to be creating that, that's going to be the day that's going to change combat sports. And we won't have another day where we are going to be relying on the sport based on a good fight. That's KHK Sports all about. I'll tell you an example on that. I always give this example that the day we can have a Lionel Messi, and I'm not a Lionel Messi fan for all the Cristiano fans. I want to make it clear that I'm not a Lionel Messi fan, but I'm giving this example because Lionel Messi is one of the athletes who doesn't speak English. I've never heard his interview, but he's considered as one of the best players in the world, if not the best, only because of his talent. Can we have a combat sports athlete who doesn't speak the language, who's not marketable, but just judge on his talent? That's what we don't have in combat sports. The day we can have that, the day we can say that combat sports is in the sports business, not in the event business. And that's what KHK Sports is all about, my friend. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So definitely it's a global vision, but it is also a vision for combat sports as a whole.
So there was an announcement today that you have a new advisor. Can you talk to me a little bit about your relationship with the new advisor and also his role within everything that's going on?
If one thing we've learned in our vision of KHK Sports, we have a saying. And the saying is, when you enter into a sport, don't try to start from the bottom. The sport has already been there for a long time. So wherever the sport is today, start from the top and go forward. And if you have to do that, you need to have the people who know the sport all the way. Daniel Kinahan is one of those guys that we've called him as an advisor. And I would use the word advisor only because that's the formal designation that we have partnered with. But for me, he's the man that has all the information, the know-how of boxing, and not just boxing, but combat sports in all the areas from promotion to fighter management to athlete relation. He's the Wikipedia of combat sports. So for me, if you tell me that Mohammed Shahid, you have so much experience and you have all this vision, why couldn't you do it alone? I would say I would be stupid and I would be going beyond my policy, which is start from the top. Where we are today, start there and go forward, upwards all the way. And that is why we have Daniel Kinahan as our advisor. And for me, he is going to be the pillar of where we're going to take and what our vision is all about. And he can make that happen because a man who's gone through A to Z about combat sports, if we don't take his advice, we would be one of those teenagers who are always going to be accusing the older man rather than being wise and learning their experience and trying not to make that same mistake. So Daniel Kinahan for us is our Wikipedia, is our encyclopedia, is our experience and knowledge, that we want to take it from where boxing is today, where combat sports is today, and to make sure that our vision collaborate with that and make sure that it actually becomes a successful vision. That's what we've done, and we're very proud of that.
From the outside, Shahid, it does seem like to involve Daniel Kinahan because of so much controversy that surrounds him, a lot of negative press in Ireland especially, or mainly so. So this will raise a few eyebrows. So what would you kind of respond to in that way?
KUGAN, one of the things we have to understand is that when you have the vision of globalizing and going at a global level, we as Brave Combat Federation, we as KHK Sports, it's like I told you, we have offices in 5 different countries. We have gone to 12 different countries every year, making events in 12 different countries, 5 different continents. So one of the things I've learned from all this time is that every continent, every country has their opinion. Every time I go to Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Colombia, Middle East, Europe, everybody keeps telling me one thing: Shahid, in our country, that's always the starting. In our country, it's not what you think. And I always tell them, listen, I understand that every country has their opinion, every country has their culture. But when you have a global vision, and if you restrict that global vision based on every country's opinion, you're never going to able to globalize. You will never globalize. You will fail. So for me to think about what Ireland is going to think, or what Ireland's opinion is, 100%, I'm not going to be telling them that you should not have your opinion. Of course you can have your opinion, but one thing we've learned as KHK Sports is that you can have your opinion and every country can have their opinion, but when you're going to globalize, there's only one thing you should think about, is the credibility of the individual. On the day you cannot think about the credibility of the individual, you're not going to globalize. If you're going to be worried about going to India because of the Indian problems, the Indian culture, or the problems that they're going through, and then you're going to be like, I'm not going to be able to go to Brazil because they don't speak English, you're going to go to Indonesia and they have a different religion or the different, you're going to fail. Don't even try to do it. But KHK Sports is different. We want the best of the best, who have the best knowledge, the best experience, and the right people who can make it happen. With Daniel Kinahan, one thing I say is he's the man who knows a boxing empire. And we're going to collaborate together to make sure that boxing will see a new daylight, a new era. The collaboration of His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa's vision, who's known as the Prince of Gladiator, his vision for combat sports, collaborated with the experience of Daniel Kinahan, it is a solution for the global combat sports to be from an event business to a sports business. So I'm sorry, KUGAN, but if you think that we are going to be worried about, we have to look after every individual's opinion, that's a failed model instantly. And I'm sure that you know it and everybody else know it, that you can't look at every country's opinion. You have a global system, you have a global vision and a global strategy, and every country will adapt to that. And that's the end of it. So Daniel, for me, his credibility, doubt that, question that, come to me asking me about if he has experience in boxing, come to me asking me if he has knowledge about boxing, come to me asking me if he understands boxing. But if you ask me if he knows India, Indonesia, Ireland, Brazil's language or religion or culture, do you think I should care about it? I'm sorry, I'm just being straightforward, It's important to know the sport because that's what we're delivering to the rest of the world, whatever their culture, religion, or system is. We want to give them, we're not here to take anything from any country. We're here to give them. So with Daniel Kinahan, it really doesn't bother me about what one country or anybody else has his opinion. We only look at his credibility, and it is beyond anybody who can deliver us in boxing. And we want to take that experience and we want to make most of it. And I think this collaboration with KHK and Daniel Kinahan, as an advisor for KHK Sports and bringing Brave Combat Federation onto that scene. This is going to be the new era for combat sports, and we'll never see combat sports any way lower to football, NFL, NBA. In the next 5 years, I promise you, and I promise you, Kugan, I want you to interview me again in the 5 years after this, because I love the idea of saying to people, I said so. So just to make that happen, I want you to interview me 5 years after, because I'm going to tell you this, Kugan, that 5 years from now, I'm going to tell you that, didn't I tell you, Kugan, that we're going to change the mixed combat sports world, and we're going to bring it into the same level as soccer, cricket, tennis, and NBA and NFL? And you're going to be like, yes, Shahid, you said shit that. I'm like, I told you I said so. So, you know, that's ultimately it.
Okay. Shay, just before I let you go, just finally, obviously IFL TV here is predominantly a boxing channel. We do cover some MMA, and we're hoping to obviously be involved more on the MMA circuit along with yourselves and, you know, some companies here that do MMA, etc. But in relation to boxing, how adventurous are you hoping and willing to go? What kind of standard of boxing can we expect to see in your region in the next sort of 18 months?
So one of the things what we're really looking forward to is to make sure that there's a lot of layers in combat sports. So when you look at boxing, it's no different. You have the development and scouting of athletes. You have the way of making sure that the whole country and every athlete around the world get the opportunity to become who they dream to become. And that is something that we're missing. It doesn't have to be that they have to compete and build their record to 50 and 0, 20 and 0 to become a name that is going to be recognized, and they can fly all the way to USA and compete in a big event. None of the thing is necessary. What we really looking for is to make sure that boxing as a sport has arms and wings around the world, and we have a strong scouting program, a strong grassroots development program that's going to create an infrastructure that an athlete who dreams to become a boxer can have a system that is going to take him from amateur level, Olympic level, being in the national recognition level of a pro level, and become a regional level and become a global level. So it's a system that we're trying to build that is going to be similar to football, similar to any other sports that's there. And this is what we're trying to build. So in our region, if you look at Middle East, we love boxing. If you think about it, from a very long time, we didn't have a pro boxing event. We didn't have a pro boxing champion. We're talking about before 2010. Today, of course, we do have the biggest events happening in Saudi Arabia, but that's true. But we didn't have that infrastructure before. What we're trying to really accomplish is not just having the biggest sporting event in Middle East, not just the biggest sporting event in Middle East. We're trying to make sure that we do have the biggest sporting event in Middle East, but at the same time, we're going to be creating the future of the biggest sporting event. And that's one more time, I'll repeat that just because a lot of people don't understand what I mean by that. We're not only trying to make the biggest sporting event in Middle East, we're also trying to build an infrastructure that is going to create the future biggest sporting event. And that all depends on creating a strong grassroots development program, creating a system that is going to create opportunity for athletes around the world, regardless of their religion, race, marketability, a system that is going to create an athlete definitely based only on the talent. And that's what we did for MMA. That's what we're going to do for boxing. And definitely this announcement that we did today with having Daniel Kinahan as our advisor is going to be 100% focused on that goal. And not only the knowledge and experience that he has, but it's also because of the vision that he has. One of the times we sit down and spoke for 4 hours. We were supposed to meet for 1 hour, but we ended up sitting up for 4 hours and discussing, not only because we love combat sport, but also because we had the same vision. And the vision was to change boxing from what it was, that tomorrow nobody should say that boxing has a lot of issues. Athletes are not getting the opportunity. We need to change that 100%. It's about time we change that. We have the infrastructure. We have the opportunity in the Middle East to make the biggest event. We also have today the partnership that is going to change the sport to create opportunity to athletes around the world. That is something that we're proud of, and that's something that we really think that's going to happen. So today I'm going to say that that is going to happen in the 5 years time, but I want to make sure that you promise me that you're going to interview me so that I can say I said so.
That's not a problem, my friend. That's not a problem. But hopefully we can do some bits in between the 5 years, and I haven't got to wait another 5 years to interview you. So
100%.
hopefully I will, when we this situation around the world, the pandemic, kind of calms itself down, and everyone obviously comes out of it as safe as possible. We'll be able to travel again. So I appreciate your time, Shahid, and like I said, hopefully as your relationship globally kind of expands, you keep us kind of updated on what's going on.
Thank you, Hugan. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers, brother.